So before we begin, I would just like to acknowledge that I'm joining you from the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nation. Mary Ellen?
Yes, thanks, Tessa. And I'm working and living in Surrey, BC, which is the unceded traditional territory of the Semiahmoo, Katzie, and Kwantlen First Nation.
Thank you. So thanks all of you for joining us today. My name is Tessa Vanderkop. I'm a collaborator with Mary Ellen at Purpose Pathways, and our purpose is to support leaders to change the world. And we help organizations build strategies to uncover and implement purpose. I'm also a founding member of the Canadian Purpose Economy Project, where our vision is that by 2030, 25% of Canadian businesses are purpose led, a model that supports the long term well being for people and planet in our business and economic system. Mary Ellen and I host events like this to really cultivate, a community of like-minded individuals and to facilitate conversations to really help us navigate a way forward together. And so now I'd just like to introduce Mary Ellen, the founder and CEO of Purpose Pathways.
Keep muting because I have a dog here. Thanks, Tessa. Um, Thanks for that. Yeah, we're so glad to have you all here today. As Tessa mentioned, I'm the founder and purpose advisor, Purpose Pathways. We are an organization dedicated to helping businesses pivot to purpose, change the world through business. We've helped dozens of organizations do the deep, rigorous work to help them be more competitive, transparent, and agile. I'm also actually the co-founder of the Social Purpose Institute at the United Way of BC years ago, where a small but mighty group of passionate believers came together to build a more just and equitable and competitive economic system and really helped kickstart and grow the purpose movement in Greater Vancouver, Canada, and beyond. So again, Tessa mentioned as people were coming in, we are recording this and we'll put the recording online for those who weren't able to make it today. And also, if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A. And we do intend to get to those at the end of the session. And if we can't, if we run out of time, we'll answer them via email and in our next newsletter. So now I'll hand it back to you, Tessa, to introduce our panelists.
Perfect. Thank you, Mary Ellen. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. Know how busy it is. So making time for these kind of sessions is, we're very grateful for that. So this webinar is about how purpose adds value across the business life cycle, including, what this looks like from an M&A perspective, an entrepreneur's perspective, and a small business perspective. And so today we'll have the opportunity to hear from three thoughtful leaders about what they see as the drivers for purpose, the opportunities, and maybe some of the barriers and how they see it. So today we have joining us Mike McIsaac, CEO and Managing Director at Baker Tilly Capital. He's an entrepreneur at heart and has built and acquired and sold many private and successful businesses. And he's a seasoned M&A finance expert and will share how well-integrated purpose can enhance valuation, attract the buyers, and maximize business outcomes. Also thrilled to have Chris Peacock here. He's a serial entrepreneur who's built and exited multiple businesses, brings the founder's lens, sharing stories of how purpose shaped and sometimes saved the direction and legacy of his ventures. He was also the chief purpose officer at Traction on Demand. And then Kirsten May, who started Uphouse, a marketing agency in 2017 with her best friend, Alex Verricchio. And they're based out of Winnipeg, but have a presence in Vancouver, Toronto, and LA. They've also published a book, The Proximity Paradox, and developed a crowdsourced brainstorming app, Crainstorm.com. Uphouse is B Corp certified in a social purpose company. So thanks all of you for joining us today. And over to you, Mary Ellen.
Awesome. Thanks, Tessa. Okay, so before we begin, I always like to level set and just make sure we are all on the same page of what we mean when we talk about social purpose business, because I feel like, there's various ways of articulating it, talking about it. And so today, the definition we are speaking into is a social purpose business is a business whose reason for being, its existential, is to create a better world. Its purpose is the company's optimal contribution to long-term well-being for people and planet. So again, this isn't about what you do or how you do it. Those things are very important and are part of the entire picture, obviously, but this social purpose is about why you're doing it in the first place. That goes beyond the profit, customer, or product purpose. Again, those things are part of your business, but this is the highest level, greater purpose that drives your whole organization. And it is how you leverage your whole business and all that it brings to the world, not just your charitable giving line or your volunteering, but everything you have that you can leverage to help make the world a better place in a very specific way that is aligned to what you do. It's doing good by doing business. So that's what we're talking about here today. And we'd love to start with you, Mike. A few years ago, so you came through the Social Purpose Institute Innovators Program, I think Implementers too. And a few years ago, Baker Tilly published a white paper called The Value of Social Purpose: How to Receive Value for Your Values. Kind of groundbreaking. That was back in 2021. And since then, we've all been seeing how the business case for social purpose has just been strengthening as we go. More and more evidence that it is not only good for society, but also good for business. So I'd love for you to share your perspective as an expert in mergers and acquisitions. Things like, how does purpose add value to the organizations you're looking at and looking to help? What do you look for? What are some of the proof points, and what do you see as the opportunities and barriers to embedding purpose into the mergers and acquisitions evaluation? And if you don't mind, if you could start with Baker Tilly's social purpose statement, that would be great.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much for that introduction. Yeah, so our social purpose, going through the Social Purpose Institute, we exist to unlock societal and economic value of business in transition. Pretty fancy for an M&A firm, corporate finance M&A firm. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to our talk here today. I think my role here is to add context about what I would say is this critical intersection of where purpose meets profits. And I say critical intersection to emphasize the importance and perhaps urgency of the relationship in today's complex business landscape. And this intersection, social purpose, underscores that necessity of social purpose and ESG initiatives to demonstrate tangible business value. And sure, I'm the business guy kicking this off, but I think personally, for the initiatives to truly win, there has to be an alignment with the profit motives and a contribution to the bottom line. And I think we'll get into today, there's definitely social responsibility and, some people might say moral obligation, but there's also a strategic imperative that can drive financial performance and enhance brand loyalty and mitigate risks. And so, by framing it as a critical intersection, I think we emphasize that the success of social purpose initiative hinges on their ability to create real economic value alongside that positive social impact, and making them, what I think we want to say for business leaders, essential for that sustainable business growth. So yeah, thanks for that. Today, you've asked me two questions, and so I'll jump into those really. Yeah, how does purpose add value to the organizations you're interested in, and what do you look for? Like, what are the proof points? And so, purpose adds value, I'd say significant value to organizations in, several ways. And I touched on a couple there already, but, brand loyalty, I'll say first, customers today consumers today, we're more and more drawn to companies that align their values with social values and that are out there. And that loyalty, it translates into increased sales and market share, but only if it's authentic, right? It has to be authentic. And I think, we're becoming much more sophisticated in being able to tell the difference between an organization that, might say they're doing something, but it's actually really their actions are showing it. And then second, I'd say there's a strong sense of purpose attracts and retains, top talent. And, this buzzwords around there's a war on talent. Well, employees are more and more engaged and motivated when they feel like their work, their organization they're a part of, contributes to a greater cause. And so you need to be on top of those things. So if I throw in the M&A perspective, when buyers are evaluating target acquisitions, they'll look for specific proof points that indicate that there is this genuine commitment to social purpose and the values, even if the vendors don't know it, right? And so I think even if you don't know that you have it, or you don't know the indicators, the buyers are looking for that, and that adds to value. There's some measurable impacts that you can look at: sustainability reports, community engagement initiatives, and then evidence around all the stakeholders and engagement. How well the company listens to and collaborates with its employees and customers and communities, and that you're gonna be able to see internally, probably mostly, this alignment between a company's mission and core values and its operational practices to ensure that that purpose is actually embedded in the organizational culture, and maybe not just greenwashing it. So that's question one there. I think question two, the opportunities and barriers to embedding purpose into the M&A evaluation process. So maybe a little bit of a difficult conversation sometimes to talk about in the real financial circles, but the opportunities really, and we think about that here at Baker Tilly. How do we differentiate ourselves? Purpose-driven companies and B Corps, they can really stand out in a competitive marketplace. Just for the same reasons I already talked about. Attracting customers and investors and talent. It's a real thing. And then just long-term sustainability. The M&A process when you're buying is really around identifying risks, and I think that this is a big risk if it's not on a company's, if it's not already embedded or into their culture, because social purpose is really going to be about resilient business models that prioritize the long term over the short term, as it's a long-term vision around for me anyways, the social purpose and ESG. And buyers are all, they're focused on the future. So it's very important, it's very valuable to them, and it helps, mitigate risk. Some of the barriers to embedding it into your business, from an M&A perspective, we can get into other issues around barrier, but, cultural integration, if you're acquiring a second organization or a third, organizations that have different values, or it can really complicate that ability to merge a business together and to find whether internally there's that acceptance of a social purpose that might be coming from the target or coming from the parent. Both ways can be difficult. And then really, probably the hardest barrier here is measurement. It's very difficult to quantify the impact that social purpose makes on a business. And so it makes it hard to justify it internally and to assess it during an M&A transaction as part of due diligence. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I know there's going to be lots more discussion around this, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And please, everyone, start your questions in the Q&A. We will get to them. Couple things just stood out to me. Well, actually, as you were talking about the barriers and when organizations merge, or how it can be really difficult if values and internal culture don't align. And I actually spoke with a social purpose business CEO a while ago, who has been acquiring businesses down the west coast of North America. And they've been a social purpose business for a long time. And I asked him, has it been facilitating the merger and the easing and smoothing the merger, that it as you acquire these businesses, because you're a social purpose business? And he said, absolutely. A lot of the businesses they've acquired aren't explicitly social purpose, but the minute they heard about their organization's purpose, they felt the alignment right away. And so that made it much easier. Um, and boy, that measurement problem, I always go back to like the green movement and the environmental movement. And there were no metrics in the beginning then either, but they came as the visionary, values-driven leaders saw the opportunity to go green, to retrofit, to build green. The metrics came. So I think that's sort of where we're at now. Things are starting to bubble up around the business case and things like that. And one day we are going to have those metrics. So maybe if anyone has any ideas on the call, they can share them with us and we can start working on that. But thanks for that, Mike. Now I'll move on to Chris, who I also worked with at the Social Purpose Institute back in the day. And Chris, when we first met, you were the Chief Marketing Officer and responsible for purpose at Traction on Demand, which has since been sold to Salesforce a couple of years ago, at least I think. At the time, Traction did a lot of work on purpose. And can you share that journey and why you pursued it? And also, do you think Traction having a social purpose was a factor in the valuation of the sale to Salesforce, and ease the transition, et cetera? And maybe tell us also what Traction's purpose was. And then follow up, and feel free to ask me to repeat this later. Since Traction was sold, you have been involved in a lot of startups and entrepreneurial ventures. So again, sort of what role does purpose play in those startup ventures, and what does that look like? And if you have any purpose statements you can share from those, that would be great too.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Yeah, so thanks. I'm going to kind of tie the response to those two threads together. So at Traction, we joined the Social Purpose Innovators. The program was great. We were in a cohort with other businesses where the best part of that was just accountability to every quarter get together, talk about how you're moving it forward. The one thing I'll say about it is purpose is personal. You need to dig into the why. And I spent a lot of time working with Greg, who founded Traction, and actually just asking the question why. The funny story, actually, for the first time in my life, I saw Greg sweat well, not in an outdoor mountain biking type of way, but just because I kept asking the question why and going deeper and deeper and deeper and why. Why did you start Traction? Why did you hire the first person? He started himself as a contractor, doing freelance work, and then why did you hire the first person? And that digging into that is really where we netted out where we netted out on our social purpose statement. A little bit unconventional because it's short and sweet, but it is waste no potential. And a lot of that came from digging through that conversation. We had some ideas and kind of like we were tying it along to our mission, vision, and values stuff, but it really was the why was like this extra level deeper. And then we were already part of B Corp. We were already like recognized as a best managed and a best place to work, and all those recognitions I think are so powerful because it's not only just recognition, it's now a responsibility to manage it going forward. And it was kind of nervous when you make the top 10 best places to work, and then all of a sudden you're the top. It's like, well, we never want to fall down that ladder, right? So it was really powerful. But the idea of actually tapping in and articulating the purpose and the why was really powerful. It's also hard. One of the guys in the cohorts before me he was a third generation family business. And he's trying to craft a statement that his late grandfather who started the business, it tapped into his reason for starting it, and his daughter who might take on the business as fourth generation. So talk about like, okay, I don't have to, it's one thing to start when I'm an individual, what is my purpose for starting this business and moving it forward, but tapping into why did this business start almost 100 years ago? And that same why is going to resonate going forward. Then tying that into the valuation of the company, like, and just the value you get out of it. And Mike made some great points about like when you're acquiring a business, and Attraction, we acquired a number of businesses before the acquisition. But whether you're investing as a venture investment or building a business to then increase the value of it, there is the economics, obviously, the revenue and your profit and how you're doing in the market and your market share, and all those are very easily quantifiable metrics. But anyone investing is also considering all the qualitative. What is the culture? What is their ability to hire? What is their ability to retain? What are you buying? Traction on Demand was a professional services firm, so we were people, right? And part of our valuation from Salesforce was our people, our process, and our technology, our ability to sell services, our ability to deliver, our ability to grow a team, our ability to attract and keep talent. So some of the metrics, the quantifiable metrics that they were looking at was retention, longevity of the team that joined. When did they join? How long did they stay? The ability, the process piece, how fast could we onboard people and have them contributing to the value of the business and what we did. And all of those, like, once you dig into due diligence, it's a hairy process, and you're basically defending some of the quantifiable metrics that they valued the offer on. But as you're doing that, you're also presenting your why. The integration, Mike, you mentioned like cultural integration. We acquired a group out of New Zealand called Trinio Attraction. It was 100 people. 30% of the business was exactly what Traction did. The other, 70% of the business was exactly what Traction did. The other 30 was more bespoke software development. But a big piece of why that acquisition was attractive, they were a B Corp. We looked at our values on paper, and you could basically take our 7 values and their 6 values and put them side by side, and they matched and they were aligned. And what that meant was we were able to very quickly integrate that business into ours. So it was a seamless process. So our the value that we put on that business and integrating that business was actually more than we'd expected because of how easily it was to mesh those two businesses and those groups together. Again, that's professional services. If you get into manufacturing and the selling of widgets and that, it might be, it's different, but, and I think Mike would probably nod on this. When people are valuing a business, they are looking at the people behind the business, the founders of the business, the people leading the business, the partners, who they work with, other groups they work with, who they sell to, and who they buy from are all relevant.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. That's an incredible example of how how in a way the value of having a social purpose is measured, retention rates, onboarding speed, that kind of thing. So we have a good start there. And it's interesting, last week I moderated a panel, and we had a small business that basically manufactures widgets. And I was asking him, at the leadership level and the office level, social purpose resonates, and they could see every day how they can incorporate purpose into their roles. But the guys, running the machines, well, how did they see it? But it doesn't really obviously change what they do from day to day, because you just have to do the task. but it really increases that inspiration and motivation to want to come into work because you know the end result of you running that machine makes the world a better place. So it's really motivating, which has to do with that acquiring and retaining good employees, right? So there's some good stuff there. Okay, that's amazing. Well, again, feel free to put your questions in the comments and we'll get to those in a little bit. And now I'm going to hand it over to Tessa to dig into Kirsten's story.
Thanks, Mary Ellen. I'm just in the middle of a little bit of a coughing fit, so if I have to pause and drink water, I think it's like the smoke or whatever. Anyways, Kirsten, I love your story, and when I first met you, I think it was just right after you went through the Social Purpose Institute, where I think Traction on Demand and Baker Tilly did it in Vancouver or in Burnaby, and you did it in Winnipeg. And it was right during the pandemic. And we know that we had a lot of businesses drop out at that time because, of course, during uncertainty and difficult times, which we seem to be in almost perpetually now, it's rocky waters. You just decided to dig in, and I'd love for you to share that story of why, and then really how that has shaped your organization. And then I asked you to kind of reverse engineer, if you hadn't done all this, what would that look like, right? Like, and what would the difference be? So, yeah, over to you.
Thank you. We'll do the easy questions first, then save the tough one for last, the reverse engineer.
Oh, the reverse engineering.
Yeah. Yeah, so funny. We're like approaching our fiscal year end, which is August 31st here at this company. So it's a time of year where we do annual reviews. And I was reflecting last year, like for many years at Uphouse, I was saying our company has been in pandemic mode longer than non-pandemic. And I feel like now that has actually like just shifted since our company started in 2017. We've had actually more years working together and collaborating in person than we did working fully virtual, which is nice. Like it feels great to have rounded that corner because it definitely influenced our company. And so did this work. So yeah, our company started as a team of two, my business partner Alex and myself. And we made kind of those first hires, which are such formative hires for anyone that started a business. Like it's such a big gamble to compel someone to leave their secure job and come work for your startup. Like those are big decisions and you take those very carefully. And then I think our company had grown to about 16 people at the time we started the social purpose work with United Way Winnipeg, and we were invited to be part of the first cohort. So we were kind of guinea pigs for the program here in Winnipeg. And yeah, like working virtually and also sort of having 16 people, that shift had taken place where entrepreneurs in the room will know, like in the early days, your company is you personally, like Uphouse was Kirsten and Alex. But then it shifts to where it starts to become this group and this brand with its own identity, which you can intentionally craft, or you can leave to random whatever is going to happen. And so we knew, like as marketers, as branding experts, we needed to define what we wanted Uphouse to really stand for. So we were working mostly remotely at the time that we started the program, and many staff were joining the company in like a fully virtual environment. They never had the opportunity to sit down next to me or Alex and work through a project or a client issue together. And so like we couldn't rely on that osmosis, that like, what is Uphouse? What does it mean to be an Uphouse employee? We couldn't rely on that to just happen organically. We needed to develop a process and a shared meaning for that, for our team. And we had a lot of processes on the way we delivered our agency services to clients, but not so much like the way that we onboarded or the way we hired or the way that we handled conflict internally. And a really wonderful client of ours called Johnston Group, they administer Chambers Plan employee benefits. If you're a small or mid-sized business, that might be your benefits plan. wonderful company. They suggested that we participate. So of course, when your client suggests it, like, you got to say yes, right? You got to do it. Yeah, but looking back, like, I don't think we totally knew what we were getting in for at the time, right? Like, we heard a lot of the good buzzwords that kind of piqued our interest and seemed really values aligned, but I don't think we really understood the value of what we were getting until we looked back. And then it was definitely like oh shit, like, it's a good thing we did that. It really set us up really well in a few areas of the business. So specifically, we were going through our first B Corp certification at the time. We had sort of just done the initial qualification to say, yes, we qualify, we can go through this. And then we were, doing all the hard work, like writing our first employee handbook and doing our first like pay scale analysis. And there was a lot of terminology in the B Corp application around impact business model and purpose. And if we hadn't gone through that program, that would have been just like Latin to me. Like, I would not have understood really what B Lab was getting after, but the purpose work really set us up for success there. And it definitely helped us achieve our certification the first go round, which is quite rare. It can be hard to hit that threshold for points, but if you have a defined impact business model, you right away get, I think, like 12 extra points. And we had that work, and we had begun the consultation and the measurement of our impact work. So we were ready to report that to B Lab. So that was one of those things. Looking back, it was like, dang, good thing we did that. This could have been a lot more difficult. But yeah, I know, like, I think the big question that often comes up when, I've sat with Tessa maybe at different meetings with folks like considering purpose, or even other organizations that are asking Uphouse, why did we do that, is like, they want to know the ROI. Like, what am I going to get out of this? It's time consuming. I need to create capacity in some of my key team members to do this. I need to create capacity in my own schedule to do this. Is it worth it? So I can share just like a little bit of, reflecting back how that's been helpful for us for our competitive advantage and also our resilience as we're in like the third pandemic that Uphouse will be possibly going through right now. A lot of our early projects as an agency were in the public health, queer biz, and disability advocacy space, because simply like that's where a lot of our professional contacts were. And when you start your company, you like tap your network and say, hey, we're doing this now, who needs these supports? And those were the sorts of organizations that needed those supports. And it was very fulfilling work for me and Alex. And we shared these projects and case studies on our social media. And then we started to attract applicants, like job applicants who also cared about those things. And, like, as a creative business, we need like top creative talent. And often, working on very slim margins, like we can't pay as much as maybe some bigger corporations. So we have to have something else to compel people to join. And it's that fact that we believe marketing is a tool that we can use to show the world a more diverse, equitable, accessible, and inclusive future than the world we currently live in. And so creative talent that cared about that said, I can put my time and energy anywhere, but that's important to me, so I'm going to put it at Uphouse because they are really leaning into this space. So naturally, we went through the purpose work, and we had this group of like very values aligned staff, like unintentionally. So of course, we chatted with them, we chatted with clients, we chatted with collaborators, and it was no surprise that our purpose statement landed on, we exist to inspire the social consciousness of brands. Like, brands are creating impact, like on their staff, on their clients, on their communities. And, you can just operate your business to make money, or you can try and use that to enrich the lives of those folks that you're intersecting with. And that's what our staff wanted to do with their time and talent at the agency. And like, it seems obvious now, but at the time it was scary, right? Because you're growing your business and you feel like you need to be all things to all people, like just to get the work in the door and like keep the lights on and make the next payroll. So when you say like, we are going to pick this, we're going to pick social consciousness as the area we're going to lean in, you're doing it at the exclusion of like all the other paths. And that's a very terrifying move. But, looking back, it was the right move, and it was that lever to help us like own our niche and grow our business. So,
In
you
other
know,
words, it helped you make yes, no decisions in terms of your business. So your purpose, and I know we were talking earlier a little bit about coming up with a purpose that really resonates with your business, and it's not easy. And I think anyone who does that work has done extensive, stakeholder consultations to really understand, how that purpose is tied to your business and to your stakeholders. And I know that you have a whole story about your whole stakeholder consultation.
yeah,
But yeah, that's an important part of it, right?
yes. And it was that business driver, right? Like, I think what having that kind of making that shared commitment as a group, it empowered our team and it gave them permission. And I know someone chatted about like purpose and leadership, right? So like purpose helps folks uncover their leadership capacity within their role. And there are no small jobs, right? Like every role within your organization is important. There's no fringe players. You need everyone to show up every day and contribute. And purpose, I think, gave folks that like direction and that confidence to go for it. So like our team took some really big swings on local campaigns for advocacy organizations, and we won like international awards for that work, like put Winnipeg on the map for like international advocacy awards. And then we use that to land bigger and bigger clients. So we had some community health experience here, like locally in a very specific nonprofit. We leveraged that for this like $1 million client in the public education space on the responsible consumption of alcohol, for example. Or, like a lot of times Canadian businesses are saying, how can I grow my business into the US? How can I take advantage of that exchange rate, of that larger market there? So we leveraged our experience working in home energy efficiency locally here in Manitoba to land a huge 3-year contract in the state of Pennsylvania with Penn College to help them build an energy efficiency workforce. And those are just traditional agency services. Purpose also was a decision-making tool to decide how we wanted to like innovate within our company and add a new suite of services. So our revenue is coming from different places, right? So last spring, we launched a talent agency within Uphouse, which is where we help social media influencers, specifically from underrepresented communities, secure deals with major brands. So we saw there was a pay gap between what like a white cisgender social media influencer could command from a brand to like create content for their Instagram compared to a social media influencer who is like BIPOC, queer, trans, disabled, or plus size, like significant pay gap. And so we said like we can fix that. Like we can advocate on their behalf, we can set a rate. And so we started approaching these influencers, we onboarded them, made Uphouse their talent manager, and we have tripled the average compensation that they can secure for brand deals. Wow. And these are for like major consumer brands like Kroger, Coca-Cola, and TripAdvisor. So like it's increasing income and quality of life for these influencers, but also for the audiences of these major brands, they're seeing more diverse talent featured on their social media pages. So it's good for consumers too, right? Like showing like representation. We know representation shows people what's possible. So we need more representation. And so,
So
yeah.
I just think that's really interesting because it sounds like, you did the hard work to really understand what your purpose was. You use that as a decision lens and to align sort of the cultural values within your organization. I know you did that with your contractors as well, but then you leaned into the business that was aligned with your purpose. And that actually, would you say that that helped you grow as an organization and became a competitive advantage?
Yeah, very much. And like it grows fast, right? Like so that service is a year and a half old, and it's going to bring $1 million in revenue into the agency next year. And there's 2 people that service that side of the business. So like when I think you often look for those, like, what are those like faucets I could turn on? And that was definitely one of them. And like without purpose, like would we have turned the right lever? I'm not sure, but like it kind of pushed us to look in that direction that's like very aligned with the company, something we have a strong skill set in. Yeah, working with like outside creative talent, we know how to do that. That's how we've grown our agency thus far. It was in that direction as well. And so yeah, very much like, sometimes it's easier to like innovate with like kind of a box, right? As opposed to just like a big blue sky where you're like, I don't even know where to begin. But purpose, I think, helped create that framework that we could sort of brainstorm within, which put us down this talent path. Yeah, and I
Just
think just
a quick question, because I know you have an office in LA, and as a purpose organization, I'm just curious, and I'm wondering if others might be curious as well, how you're navigating the US market as it sort of seems to be very volatile right now. Let's just
uh,
say that.
yeah, I know. It's so funny. So we're a certified diverse supplier with Canada's LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and I think like I remember, I think it was 2 years ago at their gala. Sometimes there's this, some of these like early like gay rights advocates, like from 60s to 70s to 80s, like they're often honored at these events. And like these were folks like on the forefront of trying to secure queer rights, like specifically in the workplace. And like now we often in Canada, like for years we took it for granted, right? Like you could come to work and you could be out and you didn't have to worry if you were like being held back or or discriminated against. And it's like those things can go away. Just like, it feels like we make this progress, we get these like human rights policies, and they're like, okay, it's set in stone, done, on to the next. Like, no, we need to actually advocate for these every day, because the second we sort of take our foot off the gas pedal, they're going to disappear. And that is exactly what we're seeing right now in the US. And the challenging part for us as an organization is these purpose driven companies that we want to work with, that we are working with in the US, they still care about what they still care about. Like they still care about like elevating underrepresented voices, addressing like underemployed individuals, career pathways, supplier diversity, but like they can't talk about it anymore. And so we've had clients come to us and say, we want to do this project with you, but you need to remove the following words from your proposal so that we can get our grant funding. And it's like, okay, so what do we do, right? Like this is advocacy. This is an advocacy topic right now. And advocacy is not about doing the right thing when it's easy. It's about doing the right thing when it's hard. And this is a hard moment. And so as an organization, these are the conversations we're having, which is, do we plant our uphouse flag in the ground and say, no, we're not going to be silenced. Like we're not going to scrub these words from our proposal. This is really where our values are rooted. This is what our whole brand is built around. Or do we say, we really want to help this gender affirming clinic get the funding that they need to continue saving trans lives? So should we scrub this from our proposals so that they can go and secure the funding that they need to operate their clinic, right? It's like, which path? And like, it's not an easy answer, and it's not a straightforward answer. And it's also not something you can answer one time and say like, here's our templated response. Like every situation is unique and we need to look at it as a case by case situation. But like Tessa, you say like purpose is like a North Star that you continually work to reach, but like you never get there, right? And I feel like this is very much one of those times, like we have a direction, but there's no like silver like perfect solution. Like we just have to keep like pushing in that direction, like day by day, case by case. And purpose like gives us, I think, like what could be like a very hard, emotional, hostile, challenging, trust breaking type of conversations with our staff within our company to like actually like a challenge we can tackle together, because we're all sort of pulling in the same direction. We have a shared language to talk about it. So yeah, I think like without it, I don't think we would, I think, be in the position we're in now, like be at sort of the intersection of these conversations. I think we would have kind of just followed the money, and we wouldn't be in this niche, but we're here, and yeah, we really have the chance to do something impactful.
Thanks. And I mean, just because you have that North Star doesn't mean that's a direction and a way to have those conversations. It sounds like I'm just aware of the time, and I know Mary Ellen's got a couple more questions. So thank you for that, Kirsten. Mary Ellen?
Kirsten, that was amazing. And it feels like you are really just in the thick of it, your organization in a really unique way right now. And so, all the best to you as you navigate these times. And Mike and Chris, I'm just wondering, I do have a couple other questions. I think we forgot to talk about how purpose has helped you, Chris, as you're doing these startup ventures. But also, was there anything Kirsten said that kind of like you went, aha, yes, for me that too, or we've tried that, or anything that just stood out to you?
That was like, yes, absolutely, is purpose helping to make decisions and being a big factor in decision making. And I loved your example of like, hey, you have a contract and there's some conflict in there, but if we take the gig, we can actually make change. But by taking it the way they want us to, we're not making the change. But just having that North Star to go back to, I think is huge. And just say, hey, is this in line with, yes, our vision, mission, and values, which have kind of always been part of the formula, but then taking it to the next layer of purpose is huge. And then the other one, just in the startup piece, like I mentioned, I was kind of talking about adopting purpose and crafting a vision when we're 850 people at Traction, and there's no time. It's kind of like fitness. If you're one person thinking about making your first hire, and Kristen, I liked your example of going from the me to we as an entrepreneur. It's like, okay, well, how do I now syndicate my vision and make sure that I'm attracting the like-minded values people, but have them subscribe to this purpose? There's no time like the present to think about it and consider it and go down that path. So you mentioned I've done a couple other business kind of startups. I'm kind of like right now I'm in the process of running a business that was spun out of Traction, that I'm going to run a lot of the same playbook stuff from Traction as far as business goes, but doing that now with 10, 12, 15 people instead of 800 people, it's a little bit easier. But what I've realized, because it was a spin out of Traction, it's still very connected to the purpose. We do have one, I'll say, work in process on that one. So this is with Kilter Set, and we do kind of custom engineering and software engineering, more bespoke than Traction, but we exist to create a future where technology solves real world problems and enhances lives. But at the end of the day, like our customer might be asking us to solve a problem that anyone on this call might say that's not a real world problem, but it is for our stakeholders and those we're working with. And yeah, just having that kind of that set in the framework that will help us when we hire, when we grow, as we shift from the me to the we, or the us, and try and attract more and grow the way we've grown so far.
I love that. I love the shift from the me to the we and us. Like we just need so much more of that these days as well, which social purpose can be that rallying cry that brings people towards the we instead of the me. Thanks for that. And Mike, any thoughts on what you've heard so far? And also another thing popped into my mind about you. When you started with Social Purpose, you were Renaissance M&A, and then you merged with Baker Tilly. And this whole idea of leadership around purpose, has that come into play for you?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Kirsten, fired up, ready to go. Thanks. That's the kind of leadership we need. Yeah, I mean, I would touch on this, like business is hard, purpose is hard, and you combine them together, it's difficult, right? So, and then as a leader in it, I'd say, if I went all the way back, whatever, 30 years ago, I mean, there was all these different versions of Mike, Mike in business, Mike at sports, Mike in a relationship. But I think since, the definition of core values within a business going back maybe 18 years ago, I started to find this consistency of Mike through everything. So you get me in here now. I mean, I unfortunately talk very similar at home, raising my kids with my wife and outside of the house. I think we talked about this in some of our planning, like the core values that have been a part of several different businesses that I've been a part of are my core values, and they're consistent through, how now I'm very comfortable in standing on those core values throughout all of my life and the business facets. It doesn't mean that everybody that I work with is aligned with those, unfortunately, but I have a chance to interact with them and share my core values and help hopefully drive their, betterment. Let's call it, make it better, make their business better, be aware that there is a better. and yeah, that consistency of the core values through your business is hard. And, I think I shared before that now I think it's just, sure, we're yeah, we merged into Baker Tilly, so it's a much bigger firm, but I manage about, 25 people. And I found that over the years, especially, really over the last 6 or 7 years, that, we hire and we share those core values and our purpose. Like we have this purpose now, which was I think the big step in, having an actual purpose that was bigger than, us trying to be the best M&A shop in Western Canada. We had something more now that was aligned, that was bigger, and each person can take something different out of that purpose and run with it. But yeah, like those core values really have to be consistent through the business, and it can't just be, up here on the board. I'll share a couple of them that I really love that that we've developed over the years. But like everybody makes coffee, everyone makes coffee, and then that's really about me because I love coffee, but I also really like to make coffee. Early accounting firms was like, well, only the secretary makes coffee or the receptionist. I always thought that was bullshit, right? Like if you're not willing to make coffee or sweep the floors, then you're not a leader, right? You got to really show that kind of stuff all the way through. And we've changed another one, fun with purpose. Okay, sounds a bit cheesy maybe, but hey, we integrate the purpose into one of our core values. We're trying to find that connection into a core value. We have fun, but there's a stronger purpose around everything that we do. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I know time's short. We could talk for hours, right?
Right? I know. I love those stories. Thank you for sharing that. Tessa, you want to take it into the
Yeah,
Q&A?
it's just and we are a little bit short of time, but just wanted to open up the floor to questions or thoughts or comments or observations from anybody. Just feel free to put your hand up or turn your camera on or scream and yell. Okay, hearing none. Um, just a last pass at, if you had advice or thoughts or that one little piece of what you need to offer from your perspective and from your expertise, what would it be? And I'll start with you, Chris.
Um, well, I keep going back to purpose is personal, and it's awkward when you're trying to craft a statement for an organization. Like I mentioned, we did it when we were 800 people. We did it when we were 11 at Kilter Set. But trying to tap into that, you do have to tap into the what is the group, who started it, why are you doing this? Mike, I really liked your point about this. There's kind of like there's only one Mike. There used to be work Mike and family Mike and relationship Mike, but you start to realize that values are foundational and they don't change no matter which version of yourself or who you're interacting with. But you do have to dig into and ask the hard questions of who is behind this, why are we doing this, and it's a journey that is more than just marketing speak and crafting and creating something, and more digging into the individuals that make up what you are, and more uncovering it versus crafting it.
I think uncovering is really key. I think you hit on something there. And Mike, for any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'll carry on with that because I think the authenticity of your core values and your social purpose are really key. I like that uncovering. I hadn't that is truly it, right? I mean, through EOS and through Social Purpose Institute, I think that was the uncovering of how you can communicate that better. And yeah, communication is hard, right? So but yeah, I mean, if you're running a business and you have any, if you're worried about, whether those core values or social purpose stance that you have might not be accepted out there in the big bad world, I'd say just go with it, right? I mean, find that way because just like good people find good people, good businesses find good businesses. And I think, enough, you know, we got these great leaders in Mary Ellen and Tessa that are helping us, you know, stand up and say, this is what we want for the world. This is our vision for the world and our children and the environment and whatever it is for you. But I think, yeah, don't be afraid to stand up.
Thanks, Mike. And Kirsten? And then I have one last thought before we close off.
I was looking at Liz's question around like purpose-driven leadership and how do purpose-driven leaders lead. Great question. I have not contemplated that, I think at the high level that you're asking, but I can share this. Like Tessa has been pushing us for a while to add purpose to job descriptions for all of our staff to like drive that deep within the organization. So for annual reviews last year, every employee set like a personal goal, a professional goal, and a purpose goal. And it could be like as broad or as niche as they wanted. So we saw some things like our video production coordinator just asking everyone to bring reusable water bottles to set and like bringing a water cooler rather than bringing like plastic disposable water bottles. We had an employee write transitioning in the workplace inclusion guide that they made like publicly available for all workplaces with trans employees and like how to support them and all sorts of like great community resources. And we all saw our video production director start every video shoot day with just like a 15-minute huddle on creating a safer space on set. And so like these are really cool ideas that I could not have come up with all of these ideas myself, but like we just put the ask out to the team and then just provided that accountability like in the format of like, we're setting this together at review time. I'm going to ask you at next year's review. And yeah, it's been fun to just like see these stories come up from staff. And then I think like the department leads, like they're there to kind of like help facilitate staff with like uncovering what they like want to work on. And then they can kind of contextualize it to the work they do.
And I just want to say that I noticed that Liz has been very quiet on here, but Liz really, the CEO of Armor Valve, has really done, also an alum from the Social Purpose Institute, but has really done a great job of implementing purpose and having implementation measures within her organization, and actually did the first disclosures, her purpose disclosures that you can find on her website. And so really purpose is maturing. And so, you know, I think as we move along, those accountabilities and those things that we are looking for in a purpose-driven organization are becoming clearer. The fact that purpose is now also a part of the B Corp certification in the new, it really means it's growing up, and that transparency piece is going to be really, really important. So I would normally ask Liz to say something, but if you want to just turn it on for 3 seconds, no, you're good. Okay, go to her website. Just want to say thank you so much for all of you for joining today. Mike, Chris, Kirsten, thank you for your leadership. You know, we have a ways to go, but it's these kinds of conversations that I think make us all feel like there's a way forward, and there is a way forward. And so thanks for your time today. We will be sending this out, and hope to see you again. Thank you, everybody.